All right, everyone, we're getting started in a second. Just bear with me. First thing I would like you to do while we are just setting up is just tweet this link out, send it to anyone you think would be interested in learning why they are going to stay poor forever if they don't get to one Bitcoin, and why, in a monetary network, unless you are at a reasonable amount of Bitcoin, your opinion will be irrelevant no matter what the $1,000 net worth people say. Send this link out, tweet it out, and just give me a second and we'll get started. Oh, look at that. Kraken has just been told by the IRS to turn over all of its user information. That's interesting. All right, it is. Okay, let me just make sure everything is final here and it's okay. What's this? I can apparently upload a lot. Whatever. Forget this shit. Right. So, I just got a little bit distracted by some of the functionality on here. No, I'm not listening to Drew Hill, but it was some R&B. So let me just get set up over here. I'm smoking tonight with you. I'm glad you are here, where we can expand together upon the three rules of Bitcoin, which, if you know the three rules of Bitcoin, put it in the comments. Tonight, I'm smoking a Partagas D number 6, one of my favorite cigars, a short cigar today because I'm going to go out this evening and there will be smoking all evening going on. So with you, I'm only smoking a a small cigar. So if you know the three rules of Bitcoin, please type them in the comments. And yeah, okay. Step number one. Steven's got step number one right. While I light my cigar and my tea is brewing. You know, one of the things that I like to travel with is it's the number 15 Knightsbridge tea from Harrods in London. So that's what I drink. There was a question, what tea are you drinking? That's the tea I was drinking, and I am drinking. You have to light a cigar slowly. A lot of people make a rush, and that's because, especially with non-Cuban cigars, which is what most of my audience is going to be in America, with non-Cuban cigars, you can light them really quickly because of the way the tobacco is. But with a Cuban cigar, you have to take your time to light it. It has to actually cook, or in the right way of saying, it has to actually toast. So you can't just hold a flame and go puff, 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 and then it lights. It doesn't work like that with a Cuban cigar, and also, with a Honduran Corojo leaf as well. So we got a lot to discuss today. A lot of drama has been happening this morning. A lot of $1,000 net worthers saying that the ETF is dead and it's all over, and we should all just go home. And I told you an ETF wasn't coming, and an ETF will only be approved, uh, once Gary Gensler is out of office, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Bullshit, bullshit, bullshit. So, as finally CS2 actually got the whole thing right. Buy Bitcoin. 3 steps to Bitcoin. Buy Bitcoin. Shut the fuck up. You get fabulously wealthy. You almost got it right, right? Stephen also got it pretty much right. That's the three rules to Bitcoin. But in order to get to the three rules of Bitcoin, you need to understand how to think about Bitcoin. And so in this stream, I want to have more of a philosophical conversation, but very quickly, what I want to cover is the day's drama, basically, on what happened. So I'm just going to bring up my Twitter here, just so I can uh, remind myself the timeline of what happened. So market opened, right? And then within 10 minutes of market open, this Wall Street Journal article came out. And this Wall Street Journal article basically said that the SEC said that these applications are inadequate. They are inadequate to approve, and that set the whole of Bitcoin Twitter, Bitcoin media, everything crazy. If you actually read the fucking article, it says, you know, a lot of people don't like swearing, but I think there is nothing better to accentuate exactly how you feel than a good F word every now and then. So I apologize for those people who get offended by swearing, but this is how I felt when I read this actual article. It very clearly states that I'm going to read it for you, right? It says, the SEC, this is from the Wall Street Journal article that everyone started going crazy for. The SEC told the exchanges that it returned the filings because they didn't name the spot Bitcoin exchange with which they are expected to have a surveillance sharing agreement or provide enough information about the details of those surveillance agreements. Asset managers can update the language and refile. And yet, everyone starts going crazy. Everyone starts saying that the world has ended. You know, Bitcoin's never getting an ETF, et cetera, et cetera. Bitcoin starts dumping and it dumps 5% conveniently on a day where there's a $5 billion option expiry. You know, GBTC was down like 6.5%, something like that. So it was a very wild day. But the people who have, I don't know how to say this, people who have a brain sort of waited for somebody to give them a good perspective and the analysis on it. So I tweeted that out at, you know, it was basically 10 minutes after market open, and then I summarized it within the next 15 minutes and tweeted, and I said, this appears to be a simple fix and just an ask for further clarity. I expect Coinbase stock to pump after they get listed on the filings. A Bitcoin ETF, Bitcoin spot ETF is coming. In the grand scheme of things, this is a nothing burger. That was all within 30 minutes of market open, right? All of that happened. Then at market close, what happens? What happens? As if I had read the process of what's going to happen, and as if I had a lineup into the SEC. Fidelity refiles its Bitcoin spot ETF and names Coinbase as the exchange. It says in its filing, I quote, the exchange is expecting to enter into a surveillance sharing agreement with Coinbase, an operator of a United States-based spot trading platform for Bitcoin that represents a substantial portion of US-based or USD-denominated Bitcoin trading. And everything's fine again, right? So can you imagine the people that were listening to the $1,000 net worthers and sold their position because of this? People that don't understand what the hell they're doing, and they sold their position because of this. Can you imagine what type of position they would be in? It's ridiculous. So you've got to you've got to be patient and look through and really understand what the hell's going on before you make a conclusion, because otherwise this market is ripe for manipulation. It's ripe for this sort of thing to happen, and you will get fucked over out of your position. So it's very important to pay attention to this, and it's very important to look at the right information and actually look at the information. Do you know how many people? Because I put out my Bitcoin training. It's called the $5 Million Bitcoin. This training is really for the people that there's enough people worrying about people that never had anything. I worry about the person like my parents who have spent 35 years doing the right thing, building a property portfolio because that's what they were told to do. That's what they were told would equal the freedom that they wanted, the opportunities that they always seeked, and the legacy that they've always dreamt of. And they're now being printed out of existence, and the property value is not going up to reflect that, right? That's the people that I like to focus on. So this training is for anyone who actually likes wealth, not just wants to talk about bringing down the system. Somebody who actually likes wealth. So this training I put out, it's called the $5 million Bitcoin. Basically, walks you through exactly my thought process from start to finish on why I got to the three rules. Right? You got to understand each and every step. So I put this training out, and I put a tweet out saying that this training was going to be $800, right? Just a tease, just to see what would happen. And of course, what happened? The $1,000 net worthers completely lost their shit and started, telling me that I was a scammer and all this other stuff. And then I put the link out a few days later, and they said this is a scam. They retweeted it and they said this is a scam, this is a scam, this is a scam. And I had to comment and say, did you at least click the fucking link? Because it's a free course. It's all free. So you gotta pay attention to the right thing, and you gotta pay attention to the people that are actually processing the information. There are a lot of good people out there processing the information and actually working through it. So don't just get carried away by the hype cycle and the hype train that can be created based off of news like this. Jack asked, "Do I always use a torch when I'm lighting?" No, I actually prefer a soft flame, but outside and for convenience purposes, otherwise you guys will be watching me light a cigar for 5 minutes. I use a torch. Torch is it's a great convenience, and this is my favorite torch lighter. It's a Palio single jet. I never use a triple jet or anything like that. Always a single jet lighter. Yeah, Nick makes an interesting comment here. The only excuse from Gary now is that Coinbase is unfit as a custodian due to pending litigation against the exchange. Yes, now that is a real concern. However, Coinbase has listed the particular tokens that I mean, the SEC has listed the particular tokens that they're worried about. They're not worried about Bitcoin. They're worried about all the other stuff. So, you know, um, I don't believe that's going to be an issue. They're worried about Coinbase listing those tokens, and this is something completely different, right? So, I think this is what this was the SEC trying to save face and look tough. Think about it. And my friend Jason Williams said it on Clubhouse today. Like at the end of the day, if you've been acting tough about an ETF for so long, and one application comes through from BlackRock, and you just go, "Oh no, that's fine," you're gonna look like this is a whole setup. And we all know it's a setup, but they can't make it look like it's a setup. So what's the best thing to do? Well, market opens, Wall Street Journal puts out an article. Great. Market goes crazy. You get your manipulation happened on the price. Options expiry happens at market close. What do? You put out another, or no, you're not even. All these companies file that they have updated their filings, and everything is great again, right? So this is classic market manipulation. Nothing to stress about, nothing to worry about, as long as you are hodling for the long term. And a lot of people ask, what does hodl mean? It basically means holding on for dear life for an asset like this. It was termed on one of the forums. I think it was Reddit, maybe, by someone. So that's really my thinking on today's ETF news. I think it's you know I, I think it's very important to understand that there will be things like this that happen. And when you are dealing with regulators, there's always a back and forth on, oh, you left this out, oh, you didn't do this, oh, you didn't do that, etc., etc. And this is not, price action worthy drama, but yet it happens. So, by the start, I had bought some GBTC in my broker account, and that GBTC tranche is up 5% on the day, right? Simply because I could actually read the information and process it as nothing, and then take action to that. How many people bought Bitcoin today? How many people actually took the advantage and bought some Bitcoin today? Let me know in the comments. And also, please share this YouTube link out to people. Please tweet it out. Tag me in the tweet at British Huddle, and I'll like and retweet it as well, and share it out to your friends and family for those people that might be interested. And of course, if you haven't yet, go. Savage said I did excellent. If you haven't yet, go get the $5 million Bitcoin training. If you just go to, uh, hold on, let me find the actual link. If you go to britishhuddle.com/, the 5M Bitcoin. In fact, I know it's in the description of this video on YouTube. So just click on the link in the description and you'll be able to get it. Let me just make sure of that. Yes, it's in the description. So go ahead and get it, right? Everyone's saying that they did. DCA all day, every day. There we go. Corbin said I bought mucho. Jack said for sure. Kevin said bought using yesterday's profits. Fantastic. Yeah, listen, look, these are all buying opportunities. Anytime something like this happens, it's a buying opportunity. Don't get distracted by the $1,000 net worthers. Don't get distracted by the $10 a month DCA gang. Don't get distracted by everyone on social media. Basically, this is a buy price. We are seeing Bitcoin getting ready to pump to $40,000 in short fashion, right? I think it's going to look like the decline that it had in May of 2022 from 42, from 40-ish down to where we're at right now. I think it's going to go up exactly like that. And that's an exciting thing. And of course, you've got to get the Bitcoin however you get the Bitcoin. If you want to know, Stephen, like exactly where I buy the Bitcoin, I use any exchange. I don't give a shit, right? I'm not stupid enough to get an email from Coinbase that says you should take some of that hardest asset humanity has ever created and dump it into some bullshit, right? A lot of people complain about Coinbase like that. I don't. I don't complain about them. They're entitled to run their business the way they want to run it. It's my personal responsibility whether I'm stupid enough to fall for it or not. I'm not. So I don't care. I use Coinbase, I use Gemini, I use Kraken, I use everyone. Just depends what's most convenient in the moment. So the main thing is obviously as soon as you buy it on the exchange, move it off the exchange. So then the only risk you've got is the moment that you're buying it and for the time that it stays on the exchange. So that is the ETF drama news, right? And what I want to talk about next is really more of a philosophical conversation around you and around what sort of impact you want to have in this world that's being created. Bitcoin is an asset that reflects monetary energy for each and every single person. But what most people seem to forget is that it's still a monetary network. And since Bitcoin is a monetary network and protects the value that people have, you have to get to a high enough amount in order to have an opinion. Otherwise, yes, you will gain all the benefits of having a currency and a savings tool with a finite cap on it. But again, your opinion will be limited to the size of your stack. So you have to get to and I'm not talking about your opinion on the Bitcoin network. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about your opinion in the real world once Bitcoin captures the value that it's meant to capture. And that's extremely important, right? So, do I know, for example, that Michael Saylor has a higher valued opinion in the world that we are going into because of his Bitcoin stack today than I do? Absolutely. He's got a bigger Bitcoin stack than me. Do I understand that MicroStrategy has a bigger, more valuable opinion in the world that we're going into due to their Bitcoin stack compared to Michael Saylor? Of course, because the value of their stack is higher and will be higher, and people will have to beg and cry for MicroStrategy to sell its Bitcoin. Similarly with Michael Saylor, similarly with me, similarly with you guys watching. People are going to have to, there's going to be a point where people cannot afford to buy half a Bitcoin, a third of a Bitcoin. In most parts of the entire world, it's already impossible for people to buy half a Bitcoin, a third of a Bitcoin. But for you guys, I don't know where you got. In fact, put in the comments which country you're from. Majority of my audience on Twitter is United States. Um, so that's really who I'm talking about. I'm talking about those of us that have been blessed to live in a Western world. Our objective should be to get to a minimum of one Bitcoin, 21 millionth. That's really what I want everyone to strive for. And I think it's very important for everyone to strive for that. You got to ask the question: what is your individual opinion worth? Do you even value your individual opinion? Right? Because I know a lot of people that shit post on Twitter that don't even have one Bitcoin. I know a lot of people that were on Clubhouse when I was anonymous on Clubhouse that in private channels that basically admitted they don't own one Bitcoin, and yet they're bullying people about owning Bitcoin and putting their whole net worth into Bitcoin. I think that's very misguided. So you know, I think that if you are watching this stream and if you are listening to me specifically, you should make every effort to get to at least one Bitcoin. If you are not at one Bitcoin, you've really got to start considering what you're doing with your life and how you're doing it. At the end of the day, do you value the opinion that you have? Because if you feel like, right, there's so many people on Bitcoin Twitter that think that Bitcoin's going to save them from the tyranny that's coming. The only thing that's going to save you from the tyranny that's coming is your ability to capture value, protect that value, and then execute that value in the direction that you see fit. If you don't have that ability, whether you have Bitcoin or not is not going to make a difference. Bitcoin is the magical technology that allows the leveling of the playing field for anyone to access these opportunities or this fair playground. But it doesn't magically make you more important in a capitalist system. At the end of the day, the amount of value that you control is what's most important. And this is the problem that people are facing that have built a real estate portfolio or built a stock portfolio and think that they're as important, in the real world as their own brains tell them. And you're not. If you've got a $5 million real estate portfolio today that you've owned for the last 10 years, that property portfolio should truly be worth somewhere in the region of 8.5 to 9 million in order for you to have the same standing as you think you do. And that's scary for a lot of people to realize. If you haven't seen it, go watch the video on my YouTube called "How to Stay Poor," and you'll see exactly how that works. By the way, everyone, please subscribe to the channel. Uh, Focusing mostly on YouTube right now, so please subscribe to the channel and share it as well. Please do share this link. I appreciate it a lot. So you know the question that I have is, again, for everyone watching, please let me know in the comments. Do you value your own individual opinion? Yes or no? Do you value your ability to execute in the world the way that you want to? And by the way, for some people, it's not important, and that's okay. Do you value your ability to decide how your money gets used in the world? Do you value your ability to help people understand which direction the world should go in? Do you value your ability to have your wealth matter? Right? That's extremely important. Alan said no. Okay, fair enough. Jack said buy it while you still can. Soon it'll be something. I'm guessing saying it's not going to be not available to buy. Steven said, of course, yes. Kevin said 100%. Right. Well, in that scenario, I hope you don't mind this. It's just much easier than me leaning into it all the time. So, in that scenario, you've got to have enough wealth to be relevant, and that's a key thing that everyone seems to be overlooking, right? Um, there are people that I know who, at the beginning of 2020, when I got into Bitcoin and I came into the space, were telling me that they didn't have the amount of money to buy one Bitcoin. And they got the fucking message. And you know what they did in the next 2 to 3 years? They got to one Bitcoin. I get those messages all the time. I got to one Bitcoin. I got to one Bitcoin. Thanks for making sure, that I get to one Bitcoin. It's extremely important for people to get to one Bitcoin. And I'm sure there's going to be a single moron on, if not two, on here telling me that there's no way everybody in the world can get one Bitcoin. Listen, moron, I understand that. This is not for everyone. This is for everyone who I care about, which is anyone who watches anything I put out, anyone who follows me on Twitter, anyone who follows me on Telegram, anyone who follows me on YouTube. I care about these people. I care about people who have assets. I care about the person who has, a $3 million portfolio who hasn't found out why they need to invest $30,000 of it into Bitcoin. That's who I'm talking to. I'm not talking about everybody in the world. And I want that to be absolutely clear. I'm not the one that's talking about every single person in the world. I absolutely know that Bitcoin will help every single person in the world. But, but it's certainly, while it will level the playing field as far as the current financial system goes and their ability to at least save the value that they create, I understand that in the fiat system that we live in, somebody who didn't have anything has been held down, but people who do have something have been literally robbed. Right, and that a lot of people don't like hearing that, and I completely understand. I was saying this on what's up, Dre. I was saying this on Clubhouse the other day, and my friend American Huddle was actually. Let me send this link to him. See if he's around. My friend American Huddle basically said something very important. He said it's uncomfortable to hear that. Absolutely is uncomfortable to hear that. The fiat system has harmed more people who have assets because it's actually stolen from them. People that don't have assets, don't have anything going for them in life, it's not harmed them. It's held them down for sure, and that's an injustice for sure. But it's literally robbed the futures that people have been trying to create for their children, for their families, for their grandchildren, etc., etc. If you own $5 million of real estate, you've been fucked over by the fiat system. If you never had $5 million of real estate, you're just where you're at. And of course, that's not right. But you got to look at, in reality, this is a monetary network that we're talking about. And Bitcoin's the only technology, by the way. I think Michael Saylor said this. Bitcoin's the only technology that uh, fixes poor people's problems and rich people's problems. Jack said, still waiting for you and American Hodl to do a podcast together. You know what it is? We're both of us are just so cavalier. We just sort of do things as and when. So nothing's really scheduled. That's been the issue. We have been talking about it. Um, but yes, so these are the real issues that people have to admit. And if you are someone who wants, I put this tweet out. I'm going to read it to you right now. I don't know whether you guys saw this or not. It's just loading. It's a pretty lengthy tweet, but we're going to go through it. It's very important. Somebody with $1,000 of Bitcoin today will have a net worth of just $300,000 when Bitcoin is $10 million. Do you understand why I've been banging on about the importance of getting to one Bitcoin during this bear market? If you live in the third world, I'm sure 300K sounds great. But first world, you're going to be poor at a $10 million Bitcoin by today's real debasement standards. Like, if you don't understand that if you have 300 grand in the bank today, you are broke, you just don't know it yet because the system allowed you to live this reality of, oh, okay, cool, I'm doing well. If you don't understand that, you're never gonna understand it, right? The tweet continues: in a capitalist financialized world, your opinion is linked to your net worth and your ability to deploy that capital in the direction of your ideas. No capital, your ideas are irrelevant. If you have no capital, your ideas are irrelevant unless you can group together, which is easily manipulatable even in the Bitcoin space by mind viruses that we've come through. Look at what everyone says. Okay, no, once I own Bitcoin, I'm part of a gang, right? Everyone wants to be part of a gang. It's like, look what happened. Jason P. Lowry came out with a thesis, right? And for anyone who's a simpleton, go look at the definition of a thesis. He came out with a thesis that basically said Bitcoin can be used for warfare, and Bitcoiners are like split up by this. Right? Some people love it, some people hate it, some people think he's the enemy, some people think he's absolutely right, etc., etc. So if a simple mind virus like that can completely ruin the bond of the gang members, right? It's like, what long-term vision do you think there's really going to be? And this is where we come back to your individual ability to execute your ideas into the world. It's extremely important. Let me just see. Yeah, it's extremely important. And the tweet basically finishes with, and now BlackRock is here. I don't know what message this sends, but it's the reality. Create value and get rich. Otherwise, your opinion will be irrelevant. Your standing in the world will be irrelevant. Your children's ability to generate the life that they want will be irrelevant, etc., etc., right? So, Jack, I got to come to that in a second. Hold on a second. Okay, we're gonna handle that one. I just wanted to put that up there so I could actually remember it. Understanding that you need to get to one Bitcoin regardless of what you think is very, very important. At the end of the day, if you're someone, you're not, if you think that you're going to have 0.0.01 Bitcoin or something like that and be able to tell the government to get fucked, you are absolutely lost. I worry about your mental health. You are absolutely lost. It's very important to accumulate as much of the hardest asset humanity has ever created, uh, at right now. Now is the time. What are you waiting for? In the next cycle, it's too late. Right now is the time. That's why I decided to basically, show my face and start talking about this on YouTube, because right now is the time. Even somebody who's got $1 million net worth, right? Right now you can maybe buy, if you allocate 10% of your net worth, you can maybe buy two or three coins. Whereas the next cycle, you're done, you're finished. You're going to have to allocate 30-40% of your net worth in order to get that same power. And it's all a joke. You have to get to one Bitcoin. I keep talking about it, and everyone keeps shitting on the idea that you have to get to one Bitcoin and sharing that message. But you have to get to one Bitcoin. And I believe in every single person watching this video, following my Twitter, etc., to get to one Bitcoin, because I know people that have done it. I know people that have followed me as an anonymous personality when I did the first podcast I did with Dennis on his YouTube channel back in the day, and people went and listened to that and turned into one whole Bitcoiners. That's amazing to me, right? That's very important. Now, Jack says, "What are your thoughts on Luke?" I'm going to screw up his name, Michik, saying Bitcoin will be $64 million per coin by 2030. Firstly, I don't know who he is. Um, Maybe I follow him. I don't know. It doesn't sound familiar. So I would need to understand his thinking on that and why he thinks it's going to get to $64 million by 2030. If I had to put a bet on it, I would say no. But that is an extremely bullish price target. So you'd have to explain to me how he got to that price target in order for me to actually give a judgment on it. But that sounds crazy. Hey, I'm here for it. If it happens, I'm not complaining. Bitcoin Shango, thank you very much. He said, pushed out the video on Twitter and Noster. Thanks for streaming. Got to get back to work. No worries. Yeah, Jack, please tweet it to me. At the end of the day, guys, you have a decision to make. Do you want to be relevant in the world that is being created, in the world that you are a part of that's being created? Do you want to be fucking relevant? Because if you want to be relevant, you better have more than 0.01 Bitcoin. You better. Because I tell you what, I said this to a friend of mine the other day. I said, if Bitcoin goes to $1 million a coin in the next few years, I think I like as far as my own personal life goes, I don't think I'm out here in public anymore. I don't think I'm out here sharing ideas about Bitcoin and things like that. It's just the ROI on that is no longer relevant, right? Um, so yeah, I think this is a finite opportunity for everyone who has not gotten to one Bitcoin, and I think you absolutely need to get to one Bitcoin. Let's see if Jack sent me this tweet. Let's see. All right, no come through yet, but I'm sure it's on its way. It's very important to realize, guys, that we live in a financial system and a financial network. And most importantly, Bitcoin is also a monetary network. And a monetary network requires you to own the amount you own directly impacts how you can affect that monetary network in the real world. And if you don't own a portion of that monetary network, G said, bro, but I keep losing my Bitcoin in these boating accidents. Well, just make sure it's not called the Titan, and I think you're going to be all right. So yeah, listen, if you are, sitting there with 0.01 Bitcoin, you need to get on your shit. Like, you need to stop thinking. You need to. I panicked. You know how much I panicked when I first realized what this asset was? I was on a walk around a park. I don't know whether anyone's, whether you've heard the story or not, but I was on a walk around a park. As soon as it clicked, by the time I got home from that walk, I had bought my first Bitcoins. Like, it was instant for me, and I panicked, and I was panicking that, this was going to get bought out before I could get enough. And that's the attitude you need. That's the attitude that got the many people that have been DMing me over the last year, 2 years, saying that they got to one Bitcoin. They figured it out. They worked two jobs and they got to one Bitcoin. That's extremely important. Remember, this is your one chance, because it's not like any other asset where I can just go and say, okay, we're going to allow more properties to be built, so therefore there's going to be more supply. This is your one chance. If you've got children, you plan on having children, you plan on having, and hopefully having grandchildren, etc., etc. This is your one chance. More importantly, it's their one chance, and you get to decide. How fucked up is that? Think about that. Think about that. It is their one chance. They might not even be born yet. It's their one chance to acquire the Bitcoin, and you get to decide whether they get to take that chance or not. How deep is that sense of responsibility? That sense of, I have to do this. How deep does that need to be? That's what this is, because you can't just make more of it. It's not possible to just turn around and make more Bitcoin. Alan said, what or who was instrumental in your epiphany moment? For me, it was Seyfedin Ammus's The Bitcoin Standard, and the person who told me to read it, but he doesn't want to be spoken about. He's a friend of mine, he's a private person. So just think about that for a second. Sometimes I repeat these things because we're used to, in this social media world, where we have now officially a 3-second attention span, of just completely ignoring what people have said and just going, oh, yeah, that sounds like a good idea, and then moving on. Think about this. If you have children, or you plan on having children and hoping one day for grandchildren, their chance of owning Bitcoin might not even be born yet. Their chance of owning Bitcoin is in your hands today. Because when Bitcoin is $1 million a coin, when Bitcoin is $2 million a coin, or whatever it is, by the time you have those children and they want to own the Bitcoin, you can't make any more. We have never ever faced the dynamics of finite supply constrained asset. So a lot of people are completely mistaking what this is. This is the only chance that you have for your future, for your family, to acquire enough of this asset. And I guarantee you that you are not taking this seriously enough. However serious that you think you are taking this, you are not taking this seriously enough. This is going to be a $5 million asset, which is $100 trillion market cap. That is easy work. And if you want to understand how it gets there, I break down the exact maths in the training that I released. Just click the link in the description of this YouTube video. It's completely free, and you can go and understand how we get to $5 million a coin, so you don't sell out like a moron at $1 million a coin when BlackRock tells you, "Okay, we're here, and the price of Bitcoin is $1 million. Let me sell out." You need to understand what the true value of this asset is. If it doesn't get to $100 trillion market cap, it's failed in my eyes. But more importantly than that, if you are having children, you want grandchildren, and you want your life and legacy to continue, their choice is your choice. We've never ever had this ever before in human history. Their choice is your choice. You've got to really, really think about this very carefully. I'm going to post a link in the chat right now for anyone who wants to come and chat. If you want to come and chat, click on that link and set up your camera. I guess you don't really even have to be on camera. You can just use audio, and we can chat. Or if you've got any questions or anything like that, I'll answer them. Tyler says, I smash bought under 30K 3 times. Fantastic. Well done. One of the other things that I want to urge people is, because I get a lot of young people sort of watching my stuff. If you are young and you've been trying to explain to your parents about Bitcoin and they're just not getting it, sit them through that training, because that's who it's designed for. It's designed for people who have no experience to understand exactly what it is from the perspective of a financial person who has been in real estate, been in stocks, been in gold, etc., etc. It's not designed as a tech uh, training. It's designed literally for, like I said, sitting my parents down and helping them understand why they need Bitcoin. So give that training to your parents, and I'm sure it will help them understand why they need to get at least some exposure to this asset. And just tell them it's not a tech nerd. I say it in the training. I'm not the tech side of it, but I can help you understand why, if you don't own Bitcoin, your children will slap you for it. Your children will hate you for not owning this asset today. Your unborn children will hate you for not owning this asset today. That's how important this is. Someone said, "Do you expect a typical cycle uh, over the next 4 years?" I actually think, if I'm being objective, I think that this next bull market could actually be better and more aggressive than the one we just went through. The one we just went through didn't feel like a bull market to me. Again, it's my first bull market being involved on the long side um, of Bitcoin, but it didn't feel like the history and everything that I've studied in the past. It didn't feel like that at all. It felt like a baby cycle. It felt like a baby cycle. So I think this one's going to be, much more aggressive, and I think it's going to be much more powerful. David said, if there is a recession that ends up hitting at the end of 23, 24, does Bitcoin go down significantly in correlation to one event? If it does, that might be the last generational buy opportunity. thing that people don't understand is that when you look at markets, this is the one thing I understood, and I had to go through 2008 to understand this. In 2008, I was involved in real estate, and everything started collapsing, and I had to, go and understand like the asset prices are not correlated to the real economy. And I didn't understand that at the beginning, but I had to very quickly learn to understand that asset prices are not correlated to the reality of what's going on in an economy. So, fast forward, by the way, I was like paralyzed with fear in 2008. This was my first time, first ever cycle recession, and it was the worst one in a generation. So, in two generations. So, for me, I was completely paralyzed. But what I did was I learned, and I waited 12 years, and I learned and made money and everything else in that 12-year period. And then when 2020 hit, I was prepared. I was prepared to understand that whatever happens in the real world is not relevant in asset prices. And that's extremely important for people to understand. But people don't understand. They think that if you get a recession, asset prices are going to go down. That's absolutely ridiculous, right? You might have short-term declines, but what will happen is that the Federal Reserve will step in to ease liquidity, and suddenly asset prices will return. The reason why they do that is they cannot afford to have asset prices struggling. They cannot afford to have the economy struggling the way it is. So it is a complete misnomer that you will have asset prices struggle for a very, very long period of time once the liquidity gets kicked in. And the liquidity gets kicked in faster and faster every cycle. And obviously, 2008, it was fast. And 2020, it was even faster. And this time around, it's going to be even faster. All right, let's get into it here in a second. Right, this is a YouTube video with Luke and Preston. I'm going to have to watch that. There's no way I'm going to watch it. I just saw your other messages. I've not tried that cigar that you sent me. I don't normally smoke Dominicans. I'm pretty sure that's a Dominican. So yeah, I was prepared finally when 2008 came out, and I had to take the actions that was necessary. And this is again the question that I like to ask people: do you listen? Right? Because a lot of people just don't fucking listen. A lot of people are so distracted by conversation that they're not actually listening. But the question you have to ask yourself is, do you listen? Do you actually have what it takes to listen to what is actually happening and to the people that are actually making money from what is happening? All of those people that retweeted my the training coming out and saying, "Oh, this is a scam," are just broke. I know they're broke. Even if they might have a few dollars in their pocket, they're broke mentally because they didn't even click the link to find out that I was joking, right? And there's a part in that training where I literally break down every single thing that I do to make money from Bitcoin. Because I don't just hold Bitcoin, right? I don't just hold Bitcoin. I've got a whole portfolio stack of how I look at macro opportunities and then make my portfolio for to take advantage of that macro opportunity with a laddered leveraged position. And I literally walk. There's a part of that training where I literally go through every single layer of the portfolio to explain how I make money that are outsized and outsize the return of Bitcoin. At the end of the day, there are people in the Bitcoin space who have been around for a lot longer than me. I was lucky because I managed to get in with money. But I was lucky. If I was coming into 2020 and my eyes were just opened up without money, I'd be panicking just like everybody else. Now, I was panicking like myself, but I would be panicking like everybody else because at the end of the day, I was lucky enough to have money, right? A lot of people are not lucky enough to have money when they actually discover Bitcoin. So, even for myself, even after having money and getting into a position that's sizable, I still have to compete with the people that have been in the Bitcoin space for longer than I have. So I've got to take all of the knowledge that I have from the 17, 18 years of being in business and investing and try and apply it to Bitcoin to try and catch up. Uh, and is there risk involved to that? Of course there is. Is it for everyone? Of course it's not. But I in that training I break down exactly my portfolio construction when it comes to Bitcoin. Again, my main role in the Bitcoin space, by my standards, is very simple. You know, I don't I don't care about the people who have nothing, right? That might sound crazy to a lot of people, but I don't. I'm just telling you the truth. There is enough great content out there for everyone. There's enough. My role in the Bitcoin space is waking up the people who have been building a legacy for 25 years and are getting screwed over. That's what I see my role as, right? If someone wants to talk about whether they should put $1,000 into Bitcoin or not, I don't have the time for that conversation. And Satoshi Nakamoto had the best quote regarding that, right? If you don't see it or understand it by now, I'm sorry, I don't have the time to explain it to you. Someone who's poor should understand this better than someone who's rich, but they don't. But the someone who's rich understands that they have a problem. And so that's what I'm here to try and get through to. That's who I'm here to try and get through to. John said, may I ask how long the training runs total? You can go and find out. The link is in the description, right? Depends how interested you are. Because if you're interested and you actually get the message of the training, you'll watch it 4 times over. If you're not interested and you don't get the message of the training, you'll cut it off halfway through the first video. So, totally up to you how long the training is. But the way I would say it is that once you're into Bitcoin, you're into Bitcoin for life. So I wouldn't look at it like, oh, am I gonna have to sit through 3 hours, 4 hours, 5 hours, whatever. The question is do you get it? Do you listen? Do you listen? That's an extremely important question. Do you listen? Or are you comfortable? A lot of people don't want to answer that question because the truth is you're comfortable. The truth is you are comfortable, right? You are comfortable. You don't listen. You're not bullish. You can't even get to being bullish as fuck because they made you comfortable. And you don't hate them for making you comfortable. But that's what you should be doing. You should be hating them for making you comfortable. You should be hating them for spending 20 years building a portfolio, going through fucking working your ass off, and then having to become a speculator just to keep the value that you earned through your labor. And they made you comfortable because they give you more dollars every year in asset values while stealing the true value through debasement. So you're comfortable, right? Just look yourself in the mirror, look deep into your own eyes, and just admit that you're comfortable. That's the first step. The first step is admitting you're comfortable. And then realize that this is the one shot that your children's children have, and it's on your shoulders. That's the reality of what we're facing here. This is the time to get bullish as fuck. When Bitcoin is $5 million a coin, that's the time to wonder what the hell do I do next, right? This is the time to figure out what you are going to do and how you are going to do it. Not sit around, rest on your laurels until Bitcoin is $1 million a coin, and then you start panicking. And again, it's not. No, stop worrying about people like Warren Buffett. Stop worrying about people like Ray Dalio and all these people. It's irrelevant what they think. Warren Buffett already has a high net worth. If he waits until, Warren Buffett's game is wealth preservation. My game, I thought until I got into Bitcoin was wealth preservation. It's not. My game is still wealth building, right? And in that environment, Warren Buffett can wait until Bitcoin gets to $1 million a coin, then dump into it, and then he can still preserve his net worth. My goal isn't that. My goal is to build wealth. So I have to take different actions. I can't listen to Warren Buffett when it comes to building wealth because his goal is wealth preservation. So there's a lot of different mindsets here that people are not paying attention to, and that's why you're not bullish as fuck enough. Listen, like I said, look yourself deep in the eyes and admit that you're comfortable. It's okay. It's okay. We all get comfortable. We all get comfortable in different areas of life. I'm just here to share the message that you're getting comfortable in the one area of your life where your children's children are going to be affected by this. Your decision today, whether you allocate enough to Bitcoin, is dependent on, is going to affect your children's children. It's your choice whether you listen or not. And so the question then becomes, do you listen? And that's what I want to end this live stream on. Do you listen? Because most people don't. Most people don't listen. Most people know Bitcoin, even in the Bitcoin space, they don't realize BlackRock is here, Fidelity is here, ARK Invest is here, everyone's here. Vanguard is coming, everyone's here now. And they're going to come for your Bitcoin whether you are ready or not. And if you don't understand why this is a $5 million asset and a $100 trillion market cap, and you don't understand why you've got a $2 million real estate portfolio that you think you've done really well on, but you've been robbed out of your mind. If you are planning on having children, or you have children and you have grandchildren, or you want grandchildren, you have to realize you are dealing with a beast that has never been seen before. This is an asset with a complete and utter finality of supply. This has never ever been seen before. If you are not bullish as fuck right now, your children will pay for it and their children will pay for it. And yes, your children's children's children will pay for it. And that decision is on your shoulders. That's why I'm out here. That's why I'm creating the trainings for free. I don't need to do any of this. But that's why I'm out here, because that's how important it is, especially for the people who have spent 30 years building a legacy, working their nuts off to build a legacy, to do the right thing, that are managing inheritance from their grandfathers, from their fathers who have done the right thing and are now sitting here being faced with this choice. Do I invest in Bitcoin or not? The question is, do you listen? And listening doesn't just mean listening to everything and everyone. Do you listen to the right information? Take the right information in. I was late. I knew about Bitcoin well before 2020. I was late. But I'm catching up. And every time I buy Bitcoin and it goes to my multi-sig wallet, it's done. It's game over. I need to fly to 3 countries to move that. It's over. You ain't never seeing that. So do you listen? That's the most important thing. Everyone, thank you for joining. Please share this stream, share this YouTube channel. Follow me on Twitter, send me a message. Tell me what you think about the stream. If there's anything you want me to talk about on a live stream, tweet it at me. I'll be paying attention. And again, there's only 3 rules to Bitcoin. Step number 1, you buy the Bitcoin. Step number 2, you shut the fuck up. And step number 3,